Jones has gone down 2 places in as many corners.
Yes. Welcome along to Oulton Park, everybody. We've got the Focus Cup Championship coming up for you for what will be round 5 of their 2024 championship season. The cars qualified this morning. It was cloudy. We had a damp morning here at Oulton Park, but it was pretty much dry by the time we saw the Focus Cup cars head out into qualifying. They are just making their way round now from the assembly area onto the grid, I believe. And then we'll have a separate formation lap. So the man who qualified on pole has absolutely been the man to beat so far this year. Lewis Clark, who has scored maximum points you could score in the championship. You get championship points for pole position, 30 points if you qualify on pole. It's exactly the same amount you get if you win a race as well. An extra 30 points for a win. And you also get 5 championship points if you set the fastest lap in any one of the races. Well, Lewis Clark at Oulton Park qualified on pole, picked up the 30 points, won race 1 and got the fastest lap, so got 35 there in total, and won race 2 and got the fastest lap as well, another 35. Then we went to Brands Hatch, and you'll never guess what happened. Lewis Clark, the reigning champion, the defending champion, qualified on pole. Race 1 took the win. Race 2 took the win in both races, set fastest lap. So out of a total maximum possible 200 points in the championship so far, what is Lewis Clark on? He's on 200. He is, so far this season, absolutely unbeatable. And he's already added to the tally because he's qualified on pole for this race as well. So another pole position. 3 out of 3 for him so far this year. Can he make it another clean sweep here at Oulton Park in the 2 races we've got coming up for you? The second race take place about 5:30 this evening, something like that. But he has been a really star this year. I think can guide you through the grid then for this one. They are on their formation lap. They have already come out of the paddock. Diesel engine cars, you just can't hear. That's the problem. Lewis Clark starts on pole position, and it will be Tom Brown that's alongside, having had a brilliant qualifying session. Row 2 of the grid, John Baker and Jamie Good. And row 3 of the grid, it's Simon Waugh and Craig Appleton. Ian Mitchell and Ian Graham sit there on row number 4, and row 5 it's Rhys Marsh and Simon Walton, but I don't think he'll take up his grid spot. I think he will go further down through the grid, and therefore Tom Fuller will be promoted up. Craig Ballantyne and Simon Watts are next up on the grid, and then it's Rich Hall, the Army Colonel, and John Ogden that line up there on row number 7. It's Johnny Mitchell and Rob Chambers there on, or Chalmers on row the next row. Then it is going to be Richard Wynne and Richard Hay, the 2 Richards, with Sarah Hall and Abby Walton at the tail end of the field, and Simon Walton will be a pit lane starter, and watch out for him in the car that's being developed for next year. The petrol engine car will probably start from the pit lane and try and carve his way through the order if he elects to race in this one, because they're only running the car for development purposes in this season. It's a 15-minute race. Diesel engine cars, which make up the grid for this year, will be joined by the Mark 3.5 petrol engine cars for next year, and it'll be a split class grid, but they're all diesel for this year, barring that development car if it starts from the pit lane. 5 seconds on the clock. Watch out for the white, the silver, the blue, the black and the pink machine from pole position in the hands of Lewis Clark. Lights will go out any second, so we're still waiting for the red lights to come on at the moment. There they go, they come on, and then they go out very quickly indeed. Thomas Brown from the outside the front row of the grid looks as though he gets a slightly poorer start, and is already going to have John Baker through and ahead of him, and I think also squeezing his way through may well be Jamie Good as well, but it is going to be Lewis Clark that leads the charge up towards Old Hall Corner for the first time. Everybody is safely away. Couldn't see Simon Walton's car in the pit lane, so I'm not sure the petrol engine car has elected to race this time through. And we've got one car that was slowing heading down the avenue there, but it is Lewis Clark, has yet to be beaten so far this year, that leads the way from John Baker in 2nd position. It's going to be Jamie Good who's there in 3rd place, and I think that's Simon Waugh in 4th position. Not in his regular car, but he's in one of the spare cars for this weekend by the look of things. The grey car with the orange flashes is not the regular colours for Simon Waugh, but he is there in 4th place, and 5th is going to be Tom Brown by the look of things. So he had a poorer start from the outside of the front row of the grid, Tom, having his first weekend of racing. There's a few drivers, new drivers, joining the grid for this weekend. Simon Walton and Focus Cup put on a special offer for this weekend to bring a few more drivers in, and it's certainly had the right effect, and that special offer will continue for the rest of the year. It's only open to total novice drivers. If you've done any car racing before, you're not eligible, but any novice drivers, there is a special offer for the rest of the year to join the Focus Cup Championship grid, and it certainly has attracted some new drivers to the championship for this weekend. So over Hilltop in towards the braking area for the Roberts chicane they'll go. All of these cars running about 175 brake horsepower, the diesel engine cars, TDCIs, 2 litres. Plenty of torque though, 250 pounds-feet of torque there or thereabouts. Tail end of the shot, that looked as though there was a potential change for position there, as Ian Mitchell, who finished runner-up in the championship in 2023, he wasn't really racing this season. He's just dropping in every now and again to help with some development work on the cars. Thomas Brown, from the outside the front row of the grid, ran very, very wide there. That kicks up the dust, that slows his progress, and I think that's going to cost him a further place as well. And indeed it is. Yet one of the Power Max cars goes through, and that will be, I think that may well be the second of the 2 Power Max cars that we've got in the field that's just snuck its way through there, which will be Craig Appleton's car, I think. So over the start-finish line they'll go. Yes, it was Craig Appleton who's gone through and ahead of Thomas Brown. Change of position. Again, Thomas Brown totally sideways going in towards Old Hall Corner. The car was at 45 degrees to where it ought to have been. You can see the black lines it's left as it's gone through the corner there. Hopefully gathered up the moment, but not necessarily the quickest line. And I think, yeah, he's probably lost another place or 2 as a result of that. There he is, the number 28 car. So he did gather up the moment. Good car control, keeping his foot planted to try and pull the front-wheel drive car out of the oversteery moment. Further down through the order, Rich Hall looking to try and put himself through and ahead of Craig Ballantyne. Rich Hall, interesting fact about him, he's rode the Atlantic, would you believe, himself and 3 other guys. Took them 6 weeks to do it. Rich Hall, who's in the army. But yeah, unbelievable feat. Right, lots and lots of smoke stroke diesel was that, could I see, coming from John Baker's car there. It just didn't look healthy all of a sudden. So we need to keep an eye on that one there. Is he dropping through the order? Well, the car has not subsequently appeared. And where has it gone? Oh, here it is there. It's come over Hilltop already. Now, that might be tyre smoke rubbing possibly somewhere, because it does look as though it's only coming from that corner rather than anything else. Has he had a little bit of contact that's causing that? We'll have to wait and see. Difficult to see from there as to whether it is tyre smoke or not. No, that looks to be coming from underneath the car rather than from the front of it. So I do think that he may well be destined for the pit lane, or well advised to head to the pit lane at the end of this lap, because all is not well, and this plays beautifully into the hands again of Lewis Clark, the race leader, if there's problems for the second place car. So John Baker so far this year has had a 3rd place as his best, so he'll desperately want to try and hang on to 2nd if he can, but the car is not looking healthy at the moment. Something definitely not right with that car. He heads onto the brakes, pitches the car in towards Lodge Corner. Is he going to stick with the lap? Yeah, he's still continuing round at this stage. Simon Waugh still there in 2nd position, but whatever it is coming from that car will attract the attention of the officials. So in towards Old Hall Corner he goes. Thomas Brown still now fighting away, but he's busy trying to concentrate on keeping Ian Graham behind him. And again, he runs very wide coming out of Old Hall Corner, Thomas Brown. So he's had a few little moments, had a great qualifying session, but the race just hasn't come together for him at this stage. Looks as though it's coming from that front right corner, doesn't it? But maybe it's just coming out of the engine bay and just trickling out from that side. Whatever it is, it doesn't look right, does it, for John Baker? But it's not really slowing his pace at this stage. His lap times are equivalent to everybody else, so he's not slow at all. Simon Waugh, in the meantime, in the number 22 car, is there in 3rd position in the Swanflight backed car, and he'll be no doubt starting to try and work out himself exactly what the problem with that car ahead of him may well be, and does that give him an opportunity to sneak through into 2nd place. Simon Waugh, who so far this season has not had a top 6 finish. Simon, who's been a fundamental part of this championship for a good number of years now. He's 3rd in the championship last year, Simon Waugh. Well, he's 3rd on the road now and looking to inherit 2nd place should John Baker's car start to fail him anymore. Smoke doesn't look as though it's getting any better. In fact, if anything, it might look as though it's getting a little bit worse. But John Baker is still fully focused on continuing in this race until either the car or officials tell him otherwise at the moment. 9 minutes to go. Up towards Druids. Lewis Clark still leading the way. Lead advantage 1 3/4 seconds at the moment from John Baker. Simon Waugh still there in 3rd place. 4th at the moment is going to be Craig Appleton, who's there in 4th place. 5th is going to be Tom Brown. And then completing the top 6 will be at the moment Ian Graham unless Ian's managed to sneak through on this lap, because again Tom Brown had that sideways moment, didn't he, as he was coming through Old Hall Corner last time through. No, it is still Tom Brown, the white car with the blue flashes to it, and then the green machine thereafter. So they do remain the top 6 in the same order. Who's there in 7th place? Well, 7th over the start-finish line is going to be the number 53 car, and that'll be Tom Fuller, another new driver to the championship for this weekend. Good fight going on for 9th backwards, which is Craig Ballantyne, still feeling the pinch a little bit from Rich Hall. Rich Hall is also coming under pressure from Richard Wynne, who's made good progress, and there and off the circuit and out of the race is the man who started on the front row of the grid. That is Tom Brown, who's had a problem. So he is out of the race, pulls the car off on the inside of Cascades to try and keep it out of harm's way of everybody. All seemed to be going well for Tom Brown. So he didn't get a great start, but then was driving well. If anything, the car was sort of getting away from him on a couple of occasions, so he did drop down through the order a little bit, but retirement is a tough pill to swallow for somebody that was running in the top 5. So we're at the halfway point of this 15-minute race. That now means that this battle that we're looking at is for 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th places. And there we're going to have a change by the look of things, as through goes Richard Wynne, and he gets through and ahead of the car of Reece March that time through. And then just back from then, there's going to be further battles going on as well. So everywhere you look, there's somebody to play with. Ian Mitchell fighting away at the moment with Rob Chalmers. Over the hilltop they come. And are we going to have a change for position here? No, not quite. Rich Hall thought about it in the Liquid Molly car, squeezing his way through and up the inside of the safety devices back machine in the hands of Craig Ballantyne. But that didn't quite work for Rich Hall. Novice sticker on the back tells you that he is one of those that took up that fantastic offer that Focus Cup made. Special offer for this weekend and for the remaining rounds of the season, which take place at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit, at Croft up in North Yorkshire, Donington Park Grand Prix circuit and Snetterton 300 remaining rounds that we head to this year. So we're not even halfway through the championship for this year. Plenty of racing to come, and hopefully yet more drivers will dip their toe in the Focus Cup water for this season, because it really is, you know, about as cheap as you can go racing in reality. All of the cars are prepared centrally, so you literally pay your price for the weekend. That includes all of the brakes and the consumables. There's a spin, I'm afraid, is Tom Fuller rejoining at Old Hall Corner. That will have dropped him way down through the order. So that will drop him not quite towards the tail end of the order. Where's he going to go? He was in 6th place. He probably only lost maybe 1 spot, actually. I think that was all he lost. So yeah, he's rejoined ahead of Craig Ballantyne. So yeah, just the 1 spot lost, actually. So yeah, it's about as cheap as you can go racing. All the cars prepared centrally. You pay your money for the weekend. That includes all of the consumables. It includes all of the fuel. It includes testing on a Friday as well. The only thing, of course, it doesn't include is any body damage. But there is not an insurance, but there is a allowance that you can pay Ford Focus, so that they then take the risk in terms of the damage on the car. Right, we've still got in 2nd place John Baker, but for how much longer is the question, because he is now under enormous pressure from Simon Waugh. John Baker looking to see what he can do. These two know each other well, because Simon Waugh behind him finished 3rd in the championship last year. John Baker ahead of him finished 4th in the championship last year. John Baker runs a little bit wide coming out of Knickerbrook, and yeah, I think he's waving there to say, look, I know you're there, do you want to go through on that side? Because there's just a little bit of gesticulation, not a derogatory one or an aggressive one, just saying, look, if you've got the momentum, come by on that side. But for the moment, John Baker still hangs on to the place. The car is not getting any worse at all. Now, if that's a mechanical issue with the car, it's not hampering his progress. If it's bodywork rubbing on a tyre, which I'm not sure it is, the tyre will be feeling it by now, but it seems to be hanging on beautifully well. So over the start-finish line now go. 4 minutes to go. We haven't really mentioned Lewis Clark, the race leader, much, and that's because largely he's been away in the distance. Remember, he qualified on pole. He has so far set the fastest lap, and he is leading the race, so he could still keep his absolute stranglehold on this championship. And he is, remember, the reigning champion from last year, Lewis Clark. So he's disappeared into the distance, some 9.5 seconds up the road now from this squabble for 2nd and for 3rd place, which might be joined by the 4th place car before too much longer. So keep your eye on the black and the yellow and the white car of Craig Appleton. He's beginning to edge up in the background. The last lap he did was a 2 minute 9.3. That was about a second quicker than Simon Waugh in the 22 car did, and about a second and a half quicker than John Baker did. So we could have 3 cars fighting over 2 remaining podium spots before too much longer. John Baker's car is doing so well to hang on still, whatever the problems are with the car. They'll have to inspect it and sort it for race 2, which comes up around 5:30 later on this evening. So in towards the braking area for Britons, bouncing over the curbs. All of the cars using control Nankang tyres. And as they now head their way over Hilltop, John Baker again has managed to gap Simon Waugh, hasn't he? So he was caught from him on the previous lap. Looks as though he's gapped him a little bit now this lap. No sign of any black and orange flag coming out for John Baker, which suggests that the scrutineers have had a look from the pit wall and are more than happy that whatever it is not going to cause a danger to anybody else. Over Hilltop comes a great little battle. We've got the recovering car number 53, which is Tom Fuller after his spin. Craig Ballantyne is next up. Rich Hall, followed by Reece March, that will be, which is the next of the cars. Number 12 car. Ian Mitchell wants in on the fun as well. And Richard Wynne would desperately like to join in as well. And he's got right behind him Rob Chalmers as well. So that's a huge train of Focus cars heading up Clay Hill, up towards Druids. And this is going to be for something like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th places. And that's a change for position as Reece March goes up the inside of Rich Hall. And then Rich Hall might get unpicked here from Ian Mitchell in the Powerflex car in the background of the shot that's trying to sneak his way through. Ian Mitchell, he's got the inside line. He's not really racing in the championship this year, but he still wants to send one up the inside going in towards the Lodge corner. Rich Hall gives him enough room and runs a little bit wide, bounces over the curbs on the outside of the corner. That gives the place away to Ian Mitchell, who should have enough to have the inside line as they come up towards the braking area for Old Hall this time through. And can the Powerflex car finally go through and ahead of the Liquid Moly machine? Yeah, Ian Mitchell goes through and ahead of Rich Hall. And now Rich Hall instantly finds himself back under pressure from the next car, which is going to be Richard Wynne. And Richard Wynne is equally as much under pressure from the next car, which is Rob Chalmers. So great little squabbles going on. Less than a minute to go on the clock, which means that these cars are now likely to be on their final lap of the race this time through. Depends when Lewis Clark came over the start-finish line as to what remained on the clock, but it's taking him about 2 minutes and 8 seconds to do a lap, Lewis Clark. Now, John Baker has come into the pits at the end of that lap, so whatever the problem was, it looks as though the car is now feeling the effects of it. But he was desperate to see whether he could pick up second place. He's had a third, he's had a fourth, but he's not had a second, and it's not going to be one in this race. Let's see what he might be able to do for race 2, for which, remember, it's the finishing positions from this race, but each batch of 6 are reversed. So in other words, if you win the race, you start 6th. If you finish in 12th place, you'll start 7th. So each batch of 6 is reversed for race number 2. So 1 to 6 get reversed, 7 to 12 get reversed, 13 to 18 get reversed. Now, Lewis Clark, I think, is he going to get over the start-finish line before the clock ticks to 0? I did say it depended on how much time there was on the clock last time he came over the start-finish line, and I think he's going to make it here. I think with a few seconds to go, unless the flag comes out early, he should be able to squeeze a further lap into this one. So over the start-finish line, no sign of a checker flag that time through. So now onto the last lap of the race goes Lewis Clark. See him try to flick the car into the corner, almost get the car to over-rotate by being too aggressive on turning, get the back end to come round a little bit and then fire the car out of the corner on the torque again. So Lewis Clark working hard. He's built nearly a 14-second advantage. So that's nearly 2 seconds a lap he's pulled the gap by, because he's only completed 7 laps and he's nearly 14 seconds ahead. Well, he was 0.6 of a second quicker than anybody in qualifying, but for an average to be 2 seconds per lap quicker in racing just goes to show how they've all been busy squabbling behind and how Lewis Clark has just got on with it. Rich Hall still fighting away with Richard Wynne. Rob Chalmers not that far behind either. And then just off the back of that, I think, is Richard Hay at the wheel of the K&N car. That's the number 75 car. Ian Mitchell isn't done either with racing as yet. I could just see his Powerflex car go through shot there and look to try and see whether he can gain a place. So there's still a couple of scores to be settled in race number 1 if they can. If not, they'll have to put them on pause and resume the battle in race 2 later on for what will be round 6 rather of the Focus Cup Championship for 2024. Ian Mitchell, as I say, isn't finished as yet with progress. So Reece March is the next one he wants to try and gain advantage over. Craig Ballantyne is then just up the road from that. But our race leader should be heading up towards the start-finish line before too much longer. Here he comes now, through Clay Hill, round through Druids. I think the car that he's beginning to close in on is going to be Sarah Hall, who I think has had a slight mechanical issue with her car that's just stopped her progress in this one. Up towards the braking area for Lodge Corner. And, well, it is absolutely maximum points in the championship still. Here we are, 5 races in, and has yet to drop a single point in the championship is the reigning champion Lewis Clark. What a title defence he's putting up as he comes over the start-finish line to claim his 5th win out of 5 races so far this season. He's qualified on pole for every race. He's set the fastest lap in every race as well. So maximum championship points so far. Simon Waugh, not in his regular car, comes through to finish in 2nd position. 3rd place will go the way of Craig Appleton, and 4th place, that looks like Ian Graham's over the start-finish line there in 4th place. Simon Watts in 5th. He'll be really pleased with that because he'd have been disappointed with only qualifying 13th position, Simon Watts. So that's good points for him, the man who's been a regular in this championship since it first started back in, what was it, 2009, something like that, was the first season of Focus Cup. 2019 rather was the first season of Focus Cup. And then the rest of the field all working their way over the start-finish line now. Ian Mitchell, Rob Hall, followed by Richard Wynn, Rob Chalmers, Reece March, Richard Hay and Johnny Mitchell, all coming through and over the start-finish line. But for Lewis Clark, proudly carrying the number 1 as a result of claiming the Focus Cup Championship last year, he has been dominant, is the only word, in 2024, and scores yet another win and sets the best lap time as well in the race. That 2 minutes 6.594 nets him another 5 championship points. So hand aloft. Now, whether he's waving or whether that's 5 because of the 5 wins out of the 5 races so far this season, we'll never know. We'll have to ask the question maybe post-race. So we should shortly be able to confirm the results for you. I think we've still got maybe Abby Walton to come through and Sarah Hall to take the checkered flag. But let's confirm the results then. Lewis Clark claims the win, his 5th of the season so far out of the 5 races that we've had. Simon Waugh finishes in 2nd place and Craig Appleton completes the top 3. It was Ian Graham that finished in 4th place ahead of Simon Watts, who made good progress from 13th on the grid to finish in 5th place, and 6th place goes the way of Tom Fuller. Craig Ballantyne was there in 7th place with Ian Mitchell in 8th position, and it was going to be the car of Rich Hall that finished in 9th place ahead of Richard Wynn that completed the top 10. Then as we move outside of the top 10, it was in 11th place Rob Chalmers that finished in 11th place. 12th place went the way of Reece March ahead of Richard Hay, who was there in 13th. Johnny Mitchell was 14th. Abby Walton was there in 15th place, and Sarah Hall finished in 16th as the last of the finishers. Problems for John Baker running 2nd. He had to retire. He wasn't the only one that had to retire. 3 of the cars, Brown, Ogden, Good and Ogden, all retirees or non-starters from that first race of 2 that we've got here today for you for the Focus Cup Championship. We'll be back with race 2 and round 6 of the championship later on this evening. It'll be around about 5:30, there or thereabouts. So until we see you later on, it's goodbye from Oulton Park.